In this particular session, what we'll be covering is the exhibits. Okay, so let's look at it. So this is a second part of the exam specimen 2018 September of strategic business leader. Okay, so as we have already discussed about DCS company, the following exhibit applies to it. Okay, so the background report from whom? DCS company to Hoi Louis. So we are this consultant. So from Danny Lehman, right? So who's this Danny Lehman again? Who was this particular guy? Is prepared by your colleague Danny Lehman, right? A company researcher. So what have they basically been given is that organizational overview, external environment, and DCS business model, right? So it's a IT company, right? IT company which provides basically first thing that they normally do is that they sell these things. They manufacture data communication components, and then the other thing that they do is supply and support services. Okay, so supply of goods and services and support as well for specialized IT management network systems to SMEs. Okay, so to medium-sized enterprise, you could say. So this was a report prepared by our colleague, which provided the report to the research, the consultant, right? So what does it say? Let's look at it. So organizational overview. DCS, Data Communication Systems, a public limited company listed on the small companies capitalization, so small cap index of National Stock Exchange. Sorry, used to be a privately owned high technology company established in 1997 by computer engineer Java Pereira. So that's the CEO as well. Okay, due to rapid expansion over the following years, TCS needed to source additional capital to fund its growth and was floated on National Stock Exchange in 2006. This allowed Java Pereira to realize his majority shareholdings in the private company. Okay. 30% of the flotation was purchased by institutional investors, and TCS also borrowed long-term funds to leverage the newly issued share capital. Before flotation, the company was almost extensively financed from founders' share capital, retained earning, and short-term finance. Okay. So what is the external environment right now? So DCS has its headquarters in Pyridane, a prosperous, developed nation with a stable and well-established political system and which has highly developed labor laws. Okay. So including a national minimum wage and a newly introduced obligatory contributory pension scheme. Okay. So it's contribution based, right? So what's the difference between contribution based and the other thing? Defined benefit liability is that there is no obligation in the other thing if the plan assets is less, right? So the government, like many governments worldwide, has invested heavily in a national telecommunication infrastructure, which has led to a significant growth in social media and where virtually 75% of the population are connected to the internet. 75%. Through a range of devices, including mobile technology. The government is also proposing a new carbon tax which will affect companies which manufacture and provide IT network services such as data communication components and systems. Okay, so there is the opportunity as well. There is the problem as well, right? So the electronics and IT industry has recently been identified as a sector with an increasing carbon footprint caused by their applications such as component cooling devices, complex telecommunication network components, and cloud computing technology, right? So the company is also planning to provide computing technology. So we will have to, how will that affect us in the long run, right? So because that will increase our carbon footprint as well, so which will increase our tax liability. So although DCS company can approximately estimate its total carbon footprint from the manufacture and supply of components from its factories, it has not yet developed formal systems and processes to manage its carbon footprint throughout the value chain. Okay, so it has not done that yet. Business model is has two distinct product and service areas. One is data communication components manufacture, and the other is supply and maintenance of network management systems, including technical support, right? So TCS employees are a mixture of technically qualified engineers working in R&D. One part is in R&D, factory staff manufacturing and assembling products. That's another. And then the next is IT sales and support. All right. R&D, factory manufacture and assemble, and then IT sales and service support. Since the flotation of the company is 60% of the production employees in the data communication components factory join a major trade union. Okay, 60%. In 2012, the country suffered an economic downturn which led many companies to postpone technological investment, and by then DCS employed 150 full-time employees. Okay, economic downturn which led many companies to postpone technological investment, right? Okay. The main revenue source for DCS is the high volume, low cost data communication components manufacture part of the business. High volume, low cost data communications components manufacture, right? And it has 1% of the total market share, which accounts for approximately 65% of DCS total turnover. Okay, so that's a lot of reliant on just a single product, right? So not product, I mean. So DCS mainly sells and supplies large volumes of data communication components to OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, 30% of which are based outside Britain or continent, which has a single currency which is devaluing against the Canadian dollar. Okay. So success in data communication component sectors comes from the economies of scale achieved by producing high volumes of reliable components and keeping price low. TCS has achieved this despite producing components in a country where there is a significant employment legislation setting minimum wage rates and conditions. Despite producing components in a country where there is significant employment legislation, right? The second product area is much smaller and is based on supply and support contracts for specialist IT management network management systems, mainly to domestic medium-sized enterprises, which currently yields a relatively higher profit margin than the data communication components product. A key aspect of this second product area is the installation and support of big data analytics capability along with cloud computing storage, which can be used to replace existing costly IT infrastructure such as on sophisticated data warehouses to allow business clients to collect, analyze more targeted and timely data on their own customers and purchasing partners, right? So Yeah, that's basically the whole thing about big data and cloud computing, right? Much of this can be obtained from the data held within social and business networking software. Okay, so that's the second part, right? So we have talked about the challenges. We need to be very critical about. We need to explain each and every sentence of this. So what is Exhibit 2? So transcript from interview held between you and Java Peria, the CEO of TCS company. You. Thank you very much, Mr. Peria, for showing me around the office and factory. I found your staff and the comments very interesting. First of all, could I ask you to tell me how you would describe how your company is structured and managed? Java. I would describe DCS as fairly highly decentralized. I suppose in management speak, we would describe the DCS management structure as a functional bureaucracy. Okay, functional. We prefer not to allow too much managerial or departmental autonomy for their own good, of course. Okay, we prefer not to allow too much. And to ensure that they act in the best interest of TCS and to avoid irresponsible risk taking, which unfortunately has happened occasionally in the past. We expect middle managers to respect and respond positively to senior management requests or directives and not to question this unless they are sure of their facts. This is probably a legacy from the pre-flotation area where much of the strategic direction was always decided by me. Strategic direction, I mean. And my closest senior directors, most of whom were my family and trusted friends. Okay, so not much happening within the employees of company. Would you mind explaining how your company is directed by describing your corporate governance arrangements to me? Yes, I can. Please look at this chart. Java hands out an extract of organizational chart represented below. Okay, so marketing director, IT director, finance director, HR director, non-executive director, right? So since 2006, DCS has been governed by BOD, with me acting as CEO. Okay, so as a seat in BOD as well, giving me sufficient control to effectively direct the company and take strong leadership over the board. Okay, encouraging debate and driving the agenda. The board comprises a marketing director, Julius. He was my original sales manager employed by the company, whom I have known for a long time. We have a production and IT director, Tony, who has been with the company for 10 years, has a strong background in data communications, hardware components. Okay, that's the production. Okay, so Toss is our finance director. He joined the company just before the company was listed on National Stock Exchange. Okay, Tris Hopkins is our female HR director, and we also benefit from an independent, non-executive member of the board. So we are very fortunate to appoint Asaf because he was a very talented businessman and also an executive director of one of our two largest suppliers. Okay, this means he has a really good knowledge of our business and of the data communications industry. And that is a really useful background, Mr. Pereira. So, what about standing governance committees, which presumably report to the board? Yeah, we have an audit committee consisted of constituted of three experienced network engineers who focus on and investigate internal controls and quality failures when they arise. To promote more independence, we have also appointed a non-executive director as chairman on this committee, who is a former compliance officer at an airport, whose background is in air traffic control and aviation regulation. but she's also a telecommunications expert. So what about Rick's committee, and do you have nominations or remunerations committee? So DCS has no separate board appointed Rick's remuneration or nominations committee. Okay. All strategic and long-term planning initiatives are initiated and decided upon by the main board led by myself. So no Rick's committee. Of course, our management structure and culture is such that we embed risk management through having that close control over staff that I mentioned to you previously. As for salary, we strongly believe that all board members should be on a fixed salary to encourage them to take a longer perspective rather than rewarding them with short term performance bonuses. As far as recruitment, remuneration, and succession planning is concerned, I personally approve and manage all the middle to senior staff recruitment, staff promotions. And so there are no need for formal induction processes for our directors or senior management. Now that you are a listed company, how do you report to and engage with your shareholders, particularly institutional shareholders? TCS does not have special governance or reporting structure to engage with shareholders. Special governance or reporting structure to engage with shareholders, including institutional shareholders. But of course, we do meet our minimum company law obligation in relation to statutory reporting to shareholders, shareholder democracy, voting, and other constitutional rights. Okay. That was all very useful, Mr. Peraya. But what I would like to now, what I would like now is more data on overall performance of DCS and a copy of October board report, which I know was considering the strategic option facing DCS. Certainly, I will ask Toss Mondul to send you our summarized integrated reporting data attached on a spreadsheet. I will ask the marketing director to send you the board report for October. Thank you very much, Mr. Paraya. Okay, so our integrated report is here, right? So from 2012 to 2015. So all figures in dollar. Okay, so we need to look at the growth as well. Why has this fallen? Sales revenue. Okay, so it was due to this as well. Wasn't that they were talking about some sort of economic recession or something? No, it was in 2012. Okay. Cost of sales. That's a significant boost over here. That's going to. That's going to as well. We need to look at the margins. So also overhead expenses down, right? And then profit before tax and finance cost up, down. Okay. So finance cost is, it's pretty much sloping, steep rise, right? And then tax expenses down. Profit for the period is up, down, down. Okay. So other data is number of employees 150, 143, 135, 127. Staff turnover is 4, 5, 7, 10, right? So percentage of order delivered late 5, 7, 8, 10. That's not looking good. Forward contract order book, number of orders, that's decreased a bit. So customer complaints as percentage of total orders and existing contracts. So that's increased a bit. So employee satisfaction a bit decreasing in a decreasing order. Yeah. So investment in non-current manufacturing equipment as a percentage of sales revenue. Non-current manufacturing equipment, right? And that's a bit down. So R&D as a percentage of sales revenue, and that's down as well. Carbon emissions in kg per $1,000 sales, a bit higher. Okay, so that's the report. So we will talk about that later on anyway. So exhibit 4 is about the October board report for DCS company. To board of directors, strategic overview, DCS company, Julius Debre, 12 October 2015. Introduction. This report is based on information obtained from all executive directors of TCS under several main headings. The report highlights risks, opportunities, and future outlook for DCS. It also focuses on strategy and resource allocation, highlighting a key strategic decision which the board will need to make in the near future. Risks and opportunities. What are the specific risks and opportunities which affect DCS ability to create value over short, medium, and long term? And how is organization dealing with them? By 2014, the international market for data communication components started to saturate and decline. Okay. For the supply and support of contracts for specialized IT network management systems, we are now finding it increasingly difficult and costly to maintain the required level of network support. It is getting harder to recruit high caliber staff to DCS. The headquarters of DCS, although a modern site, is a geographical location which is unattractive for key personnel to relocate to. Okay. Geographical location, right? Which is unattractive. Okay. So our specialists in the systems support side of the business are currently overstretched because many key staff have been headhunted or taken early retirement. Okay, headhunted by other company. That could be the reason that your sales and everything is falling. So lenders have until recently been quite willing to lend DCS additional long-term funds at a competitive interest rates. Okay, but now tightening their credit lines to the company and placing covenants on us to keep financial gearing within acceptable limits. Okay, so that will be breached if the accounting policies change. So there is a risk from that as well. So right, financial risk is there. So they are also increasing their interest rate to compensate for the additional financial risk. Okay, of course, that should be there. That's what the interest rate should reflect. So it is unlikely that any future growth or investment can be financed from further debt. We would need to consider use our considerable cash reserves or utilize internally generated funds. Currently, DCS has a geared cost of equity capital of 12%. That's quite high. So, how does the future outlook look like? So, what was the risks and opportunities that we have identified is a risk is basically regarding financial risk, right? And then market risk is also there because of saturation, right? Opportunities, Cost could be low if they are in an attractive location. Operating cost would be low. So let's have a detailed look at it as well. So let's read this thing. Future outlook. What challenges and uncertainties is TCS likely to encounter in pursuing its strategy? What are the potential implications for its business model and future performance? TCS currently manufactures approximately 50% of all data communication components used in its own products. 50%. Okay. The rest of the complete components include semiconductors, microprocessors, which are bought from two MNCs, multinational company. So these suppliers have since 2006 become the key player in the market through a succession of acquisition and mergers, where previously there were many more suppliers, all with a much smaller market share. Recently, serious production problems have resulted from periodic component shortages from these key suppliers, creating significant delays in manufacturing, assembly, and customer deliveries. One of our recently acquired OEM customers accounts for 40% of our sales in this area. Okay, that's too much concentration on a single OEM. So, marketing forecast for 2016 and beyond indicates stronger growth from the supply and sales support for management services to currently installed networks in the domestic financial sector rather than from the manufacture of production rather rather from the manufacture of components to OEMs or for the installation of new networks to large companies. The other potential growth area is in providing cloud computing and big data analytics capacity to SME sector, including DCS. There are currently only three companies which provide these specialist services in per day. Okay, so competitor is pretty less, only three companies. So strategy and resource allocation. Where does DCS want to go, and what does it intend? How does it intend to get there? So as executive directors, we need an appropriate strategy